Hi, I'm Barry Ostrowski. At RWJ Barnabas Health, we believe that everyone needs to be informed about the important healthcare issues affecting their lives. That's why we're proud to support the important educational programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation.
This special edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center. Funding has been provided by Investors Bank, RWJ Barnabas Health, the Northward Center, the law firm of Gibbons PC, Johnson & Johnson, NJM Insurance Group, and by Berkeley College. Promotional support provided by AM 970 The Answer, and by New Jersey Monthly, the magazine of the Garden State, available at newsstands.
This is One-on-One. I'm an equal American just like you are.
The jobs of tomorrow are not the jobs of yesterday.
Look at this. You got this?
Here it is, man. Look at it.
Life without dance is boring.
I don't care how good you are or how good you think you are, there is always something to learn.
Do you enjoy talking politics?
No. People call me because they feel nobody's paying attention.
Our culture, I don't think, has ever been tested the way it's being tested right now.
Such a good question. High five.
Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. Welcome to the Tisch WNET studio here in the heart of New York City. It is our honor and pleasure once again to welcome Neal Shapiro, our president and CEO of WNET. Good to see you, my friend.
Nice to be back, Steve.
Last time we were here, last year, we were talking about where we are in media and journalism. I'm going to jump right in. Where are we?
We're in a tough time and an exciting time. We're in a tough time because criticism from the White House and some of the conservative wing has never been tougher, more misplaced, and I think more building suspicion about everything. We're in an exciting place because there are more partnerships, technology is better, and I think people are starting to realize the value of journalism, that it's unbiased and straight ahead. And you're seeing some of that in more support for institutions like PBS and like 13 and like NJTV than we've seen before.
Yeah. I ask you this, and I don't want to, and you want to see past interviews with Neal, go on our website right now. The fundraising part, the economics of what we do, is that more challenging than ever? Forget about the government side, because they're going to do what they're going to do in Washington. Fundraising for you and your colleagues, more challenging?
Yeah, it is more challenging because let's start out, we give away a product for free. That's a tough economic basis to start with. And news is always a harder thing to raise money for than some of the other things. Not that we're not proud of all of it for arts and culture and history and science and so forth. News is a tougher thing. It's interesting, people are happy to partake of it, people are happy to see the value of it, but it's hard to get them to realize how much we depend on it. And especially now, the interesting thing in news is you have to be not just on how we're watching now on television, you have to be on every platform, you have to think about digital. All those come with extra cost.
Yeah, you know, Metro Focus, by the way, log on to the Metro Focus, the WNET website or the NJTV one or WLIW, about Metro Focus. I remember you started talking about Metro Focus. I'm going to see if I can get this right. Was it 5 or 6 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay. Describe what you thought it would be, what it is today, and then we'll talk about all the other platforms it's on. Go ahead. Loaded question, I know.
What I wanted to be, we were on just first once a month. And I said, you know, we need a bigger blueprint because because news in the tri-state area is so important and so challenging. And with all due respect to our commercial competitors, they can't really take deep dives into what they need to, right? They have 22 minutes, they have to do traffic and sports and weather. But the things that I thought were important to this city, things like education, zoning, transportation, right?
Falling
economics,
infrastructure, crumbling around us. That's not going to happen unless there's a horrific incident.
That's right.
And the local, it's not right.
That's right. And it's also just by nature of their format. They have commercials to squeeze in, so they're not going to take 10 minutes, 15 minutes, a half an hour to take deep dives, and I thought we should do that. So it went from a monthly show to a weekly show, and then a couple years ago 5 years ago to a daily show. And that's where we are now.
And by the way, congratulations to the team at Metro Focus. Just won New York Emmy.
First local Emmy.
Right?
Very excited.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
To Dave and the team and everyone there, to Raf and all the folks there. So try this one. When you, firing line, we had Margaret Hoover here. And also we had John Avalon taping today from CNN, who is Margaret's husband, and he's a huge fan of public broadcasting. When you and your colleagues said, let's bring Firing Line, the old William F. Buckley program back, what was the thinking behind it, and why now more than ever as we lead into 2020?
Interesting story about that, because Margaret is clearly a big talent. right? And her executive producer and I had known each other years ago at ABC News. He came in, we talked about the need for making sure that we had all points of view reflected. And in this era where people are screaming and shouting.
And not listening to
And
each
not
other.
listening. Margaret is really smart. She comes at it from more sort of a moderate to conservative point of view.
Sure does.
But in a very open and honest way. And her interviews are probing but very respectful, all about the kind of dialogue we need in public television. We need everywhere, but the only place that's going to have it is public television. So Firing Line was that place for years and years, and then it went away as Mr. Buckley went away. So when she came back and said, I'd like to do the show, and, you know, by the way, I'm in the lineage of Herbert Hoover, and by the way, we have the rights to Firing Line, and I think we'll call it the Margaret Hoover Show. And I said, I got a better idea. Why don't we call it Firing Line? I said, oh, you think so?
You did that?
Yeah. Only because I thought Firing Line had this, you know, incredible resonance with the audience, and it does.
Well, I'll bring it back to the local level. I called Neal several months ago because we have to check in, and I said, Neal, we have an idea. Ben Wattenberg did a program called Think Tank many years ago, and we lost Ben Wattenberg, a conservative-leaning intellectual.
Yeah, exactly.
Fair to say? And I said, what about if we created a series called Think Tank? We did it over, we tape it over at NJTV on the Jersey side of Newark, and just have a meaningful discussion with different people, civil, respectful. And you said, basically, if you can raise the money, and we can do it right.
Yeah.
Why is that civil discourse, disagreeing but never being disagreeable and personal and negative, why is it so important to our public broadcasting brand?
You know, I think it's important because it's not that other people don't discuss issues. They just yell and scream at each other, right? And some, I think, oftentimes it's just about the theater. It's either about getting people who will disagree about each other and amping up the atmosphere because people respond to tension, but they don't learn anything. Or the other thing which happens a lot is getting people who agree with each other all the time. So you get the same point of view over and over again. And that just reinforces people's point of view. What I think public television has carved out is truly a unique place where people from different points of view, as you say, will disagree agreeably. And that seems to me gives the audience a chance that they get really very few other places on television, maybe no other place on television, where to sit back and say, I won't be distracted by who dislikes each other more. I'm going to pay attention to what they're saying, to the substance of it. And that's what makes us unique. And in these times where the temperature is so amped up on everything, where people even in the same family can't talk because
talk.
Right, because the fuse, it takes one word to set off an argument. That's what I think makes public television truly unique.
Go back to the Jersey side. By the way, when we mentioned NJTV, there would be no NJTV if there were not for WNET and Neal believing in that idea, not just believing it, but helping making it happen. Is it 2011?
Yeah.
8 years.
Yeah.
Talk about NJTV today, NJTV, the network, the news, and also the partnership with folks like Spotlight.
First, I couldn't be prouder of what NJTV has done over 8 years. As you talked about in the very beginning, they sort of flipped the switch and said, now it's yours. And
New Jersey the government got out of the business and said, anyone want it? No one did.
Right. So we stepped in, but it was truly, you know, we had a little studio. We sort of ran together the newscast, heroic, but truly understaffed. Now we have a daily newscast. It's the only one that covers the whole state. They do a great job. What I'm very excited about is, in the spirit of how do we do better, is we've acquired NJ Spotlight, which is the leading digital news provider in the state. And now, for the first time, a statewide public television station, we're working with a statewide digital news service to together produce something which will be more exciting. And I think we will borrow from each other. I think what makes NJ Spotlight great is they have incredible depth. They have people who know these issues backwards and forwards. And they're very good at the print word, but they're not so good as they'll acknowledge in what video is. And we have great video reporters who are, you know, constrained by a minute and a half or 2 minutes or 3 minutes every night. So to put those two things together and make it a richer experience for both is very exciting.
So, real quick follow-up on the Neal. You moderated a forum at NJPAC, New Jersey Performing Arts Center, on the importance of, I don't know if I want to call it local journalism. What's the difference between that and hyper-local journalism? Is there a difference?
Yeah. So local journalism would be, you know, what's important to you, written maybe by the city or the state. Hyper-journalism would say, like, what's important to you in your neighborhood, in your community. And the challenge for journalists is going to be not just how do I cover things that make a difference in the country or the state or even the city, but what are truly local things I can get. And what's exciting about the digital world is we can tailor that news. And the more we know about you, so for instance, we've been talking about Spotlight taking advantage of all these databases that they have access to. So if you care about, and especially in New Jersey, you care about property taxes or school enrollment or crime or transportation, we can report about those things across the state or across north versus south or central. But what you really want to do, if you have the time, and we can teach you how to do it, is find out what does it mean in your school district? What does it mean where you live? And the ability to do that and then do stories out of that is the next big step in journalism.
Before I let you out of here, your constant, I mean, I always say the same thing about you, a producer at heart, but is an executive in his role, both, put them together. How do you stay as fresh as you continue to be in terms of not doing the same job, innovating all the time? Someone said innovate or die.
Look, I think every corporation has to do that. I consider myself incredibly lucky. I get to work with great people. We have great partners. I think they also bring a sense of energy. You know, you can't innovate if you don't have people who are willing to try things. You can't innovate if the team isn't open to that. And I think our team, both the partners we work with like you and the people who work directly for us, all are excited about that. And there's something great about coming to work and saying, this was good, how do we make it better? And that's truly what we have.
And to Neal's point, not just because he's the boss here, because it's a fact, we wouldn't be here in this studio doing this program, with this program, if we're not for this partnership. Thank you, my friend.
My pleasure.
Well, I always say this every time. We'll talk about the Yankees another time. We're just fans. And the rest of you are too. This is One-on-One. We are at the Tisch WNET studio here in the heart of Lincoln Center. Be right back after this.
To watch more One-on-One with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
We love everything about you. Everything about you is going to be so alive. You will be more chill.
Wow, that's good stuff. You're looking at Stephanie Hsu. That is from Be More Chill. She is an actress in this play. And you play whom?
Christine Canigula.
And she's what kind of character?
She is a theater enthusiast. She is what I like to call a weird bird. And yeah, and she's the love interest and the totem of truth in the show.
What's the premise of the show?
So the show is about a high school kid named Jeremy here who is a little bit of a nobody, and he just wants to figure out a way to get by in high school and make life a little bit easier and hopefully get a chance with weird bird Christine Canigula. And so
you're the love interest.
I am, yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
But he's not getting to you.
He's not, no. And she's thinking about theater. She's thinking about, you know, feminism as a high schooler. So he decides to take this pill that is called a SQUIP.
A what?
A SQUIP.
SQUIP, go ahead.
A super quantum intel processor. Yes.
What happens?
It implants in your brain and it tells you what to do. And so, you know, so he takes this pill and, you know, life does become a little bit easier and he climbs the echelons of high school hierarchy, but all at a cost. And that is sort of the premise of our little skit.
Wow, that is so interesting. Now, you were born and raised in L.A.
I was, yeah.
Your high school experience.
Yes.
Remember any of this?
I do.
Come on, seriously.
I loved high school.
Oh, you did?
I did.
You did not need any pill. I'm sorry. You didn't.
I didn't need a SQUIP, no.
You did not need that, and you were very involved in theater.
I was involved in theater sort of later on in my high school trajectory. I started playing basketball. 5 feet tall and playing basketball.
Look at you. You're a point guard.
Yes. I was secret perimeter shooter.
And you could shoot the three-pointer.
Yes.
So you have a good three-point shot. You're a point guard, and you're involved in experimental theater.
Yeah, I started experimental theater when I moved to New York.
Define it.
Experimental theater to me means devising work. So a lot of it involved multimedia and multidisciplinary work, which is not necessarily traditional music and musical theater, but considering sound as concept and body and dance and creating work with the ensemble members in the room. I worked a lot with this woman, Liz Swados, who wrote the show Runaways, which was on Broadway in the 70s, and she gathered a bunch of young people who are runaways on the streets of New York and brought them together in a room to hear their stories and created or devised a piece with them. And that premiered at the Public, and then it just sort of went to Broadway unintentionally. So she was a huge mentor of mine, and that was a lot of my background.
And you get to Broadway when?
I got to Broadway a few years ago, 1 or 2 years ago, with SpongeBob.
Saw it.
That was my debut.
Saw you.
Yes, I was
Awesome.
the computer. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
tell everyone who you were again. I stepped on that.
I played Karen the computer wife.
How much fun was it?
That was so fun. And that was actually Tina Landau, who was the director. She comes from a very devised experimental background as well. So it was a perfect marriage of collaboration. But it was so, so fun. And this show's so fun, too.
Describe this show, the ensemble.
For Be More Chill?
Yeah.
So there's a cast of 10 of us, not including swings. And everyone, both SpongeBob and this show, I feel like I just get lumped in with all the beautiful weirdos of Broadway. We're all very supportive and loving of one another, and we just have a lot of fun.
Is there a genuine, a real community, Broadway community?
Absolutely. And I never knew that until I became a part of the community of Broadway. And actually, recently, so there's this thing called the Legacy Robe, which is basically each show, whatever ensemble member has been a part of the cast or has been a part of the most Broadway shows, they get passed a Legacy Robe, which is to honor the ensemble members of Broadway. And because our show, For Be More Chill, is a full principal cast, we didn't have that tradition. So I started this thing called the debut quilt.
The debut quilt.
The Broadway debut quilt, yeah. And it's just to honor people who are making their Broadway debuts. And this woman, Jen Cody, who has been on Broadway, she's a Broadway veteran, and we've never officially met. She wrote me this thank you letter and dropped it off at the stage door because she found out about the debut quilt through the grapevine. And she just said, thank you for honoring Broadway and the Broadway community. And I was so moved by that. I really felt like, whoa, this truly is a very beautiful and strong community.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, as you're talking about this, I'm wondering, do you have to be a working actor to be in the community? Meaning there are so many talented, as you know better than I do, way better than I do, talented actors who are not working.
Yeah.
Are they part of it, or are they looking to get, I mean, how does that work? How do you support those who, helpful to those who aren't able to find work?
Yeah, I mean, I have some of the most talented friends in my community outside of Broadway who are always varying in their degrees of employment, and that's part of being an artist. And unfortunately, it is ebbs and flows, and I think the important thing is to continually support one another, regardless of if you are employed in something that feels like it is affirming your worth. You know, making work and being an artist is so much more than just a paycheck, though the paycheck is certainly helpful. So, you know, in my dream world, there would be greater funding for the arts.
And everyone would be able to work, every talented person.
Yeah.
And by the way, you're political in some ways. In fourth grade, out in LA,
Yes, out in
you
LA.
ran for class president in fourth grade?
Class vice president.
Okay, vice president.
Yeah.
We heard you were very popular out there. You had a very in-depth campaign platform with a slogan.
Stephanie Hsu is the shoe for you.
Was that really it?
Yep.
And you won.
I did, yeah. And then actually, so you can't run for president until you're in fifth grade. And so I ran for president in fifth grade, and I was too lazy to come up with a different concept for a slogan.
You
so
did
I
the same one?
No. I did Stephanie Hsu is the shampoo for you.
And
I won.
Look at you.
See, wordplay is fun.
You know
Puns
what?
are great.
We do a lot of programming in connection with the 2020 presidential election.
Yes.
I have a feeling some people are going to change their slogans after this.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
We'll see.
Let's hope they,
Yes, let's just leave it
Change
at that.
a lot, yeah.
Stephanie Hsu is an actress. She's terrific. She plays Christine
Canigula.
And that's at the Lyceum Theater. Be More Chill, 149 West 45th Street. We wish you all the best. Great job.
Thank you.
You're a role model for a lot of folks.
Thank you.
Stay with us. We'll be right back right after this.
To see more one-on-one with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at steveadubato.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato PhD and follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
We are thrilled to be joined for the first time by Eliza Factor, the founder of an organization called Extreme Kids and Crew, and novelist and author of Strange Beauty, A Portrait of My Son. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm happy to be here.
Glad to have you. Tell us about your son, Felix.
My son Felix right now is at a wonderful school in New Hampshire. He's been living there for 5 years. So since he's kind of moved to New Hampshire, I've been able to really dedicate myself to helping families with kids with disabilities and building this organization, and seeing Felix, in a more kind of conventional parental way, rather than like a 24-hour emergency, high alert handler.
What's he challenged by?
He's got a bunch of different disabilities. And because of that, my work is really pan-disability. But I guess cerebral palsy and autism would be the two big ones we use, because there's a lot of understanding about them, and they're good for getting services.
So the organization you created, what year again?
2010.
Why?
Because I have 3 kids. Felix was the first. Felix was, as everybody who has a bunch of kids, there's some wonderful, amazing, incredibly difficult getting used to being a parent stuff that happens with your first child. That, it's not like the others are a breeze, but it's a major transition. And then Felix was, a somewhat more complicated case, because there was a lot of time in the hospitals and therapists, and just trying to figure out why he wasn't sitting up, why he was like a rag doll floppy. What was going on. And so for the first 3 years of his life, I didn't really have a community of friends. I had a community of therapists and doctors and, like a wonderful babysitter, because I needed help with him.
Feel isolated?
So I felt very isolated. And then when I didn't realize I felt isolated, because I have a wonderful husband, and it was really difficult but also incredibly rewarding being with Felix. And he was very happy in many ways, and very interesting to me, and very expressive. So even though he didn't use language and wasn't learning like other kids, just being with him and trying to get into his world was deeply rewarding.
Right.
And so I didn't understand that I was isolated until I had my daughters. And then all of a sudden, going to the playground or going to music class or something was so easy. And it was so easy to have conversations with other parents. Everybody had been nice when it was just me and Felix, but I couldn't really relate to other parents, because what they were talking about just seemed so easy.
But the organization does what for whom?
Well, the organization, what it does is replicates that kind of easy socializing that happens with families who have regular kids. We have a play space, we have art projects, we have concerts. We do all of these things that just bring people into a room together, so that people can meet each other who have, kids that are different from the regular kids that hang out at playgrounds and stuff like that. So you can basically come to our spaces with your kid with disability, with your neurotypical kid, and just relax, because everybody else in the space is okay. you're not freaking anybody out. If somebody has a seizure, people are like, is somebody helping that person? But people aren't like, I see. It's just when there's that that level of ease with difference, the atmosphere is just therapeutic. And it's a nice way to meet each other and stuff like that.
In your book, what is the message that you want to share with everyone? Because you talk about so much about what you've learned from Felix.
I think there's so many messages in there, but the main message is I'm trying to break down people's fear and pity surrounding disability. Trying to, make people understand that we all have disabilities, and, kind of being frightened of somebody else's disability, I think, is often just being frightened of our own weaknesses and fears and deep stuff. And so we get alarmed by the difference of someone else. And once that fear goes away, then life becomes much more interesting and creative and fun and rich. And not that you can lose your fear from reading a book, but I'm putting that, it's just one of those many little pebbles, hopefully, that you throw into the pond, and then one of them goes thunk. And
that's the whole idea.
Yeah.
Enough pebbles, one after another, hopefully, I don't want to say changes people's view, but opens up their mind.
Yeah. Or if you can get somebody just in a different space for a second, then they may see something that.
The book, Strange Beauty, A Portrait of My Son, Eliza Factor, and the organization again?
Extreme Kids and Crew.
Your website has been
.org. Yeah.
.org. The website's been up. I want to thank you, not just for being with us here on public television, but the work you're doing every day. And you're making a difference. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Stay with us. No, I was so engrossed I forgot. It's the end of the show. We'll see you next time. Okay.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 30 years of broadcast excellence. This special edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center. Funding has been provided by Investors Bank, RWJ Barnabas Health, the Northward Center, the law firm of Gibbons PC, Johnson & Johnson, NJM Insurance Group, and by Berkeley College. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.
NJM Insurance Company has been serving New Jersey policyholders for more than 100 years. But just who are NJM's policyholders? They're the men and women who teach our children, the public sector employees who maintain our infrastructure, the workers who craft our manufactured goods, and New Jersey's next generation of leaders, the people who make our state a great place to call home. NJM, we've got New Jersey covered.